and very interesting. And I'm sure this will shape our way for African trade economy. We thank you very much for that insight. To the host, I think on behalf of His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Jigawa State and the entire people of Jigawa State, we are bringing a message of goodwill to Professor Fatou Toumi and his wife, and in fact for organizing this series of lectures. This series of lectures all along has been very, very educative and very inspiring. I am sure the content of these lectures has helped in shaping the economy of this country. And whatever comes out of these lectures will be useful for the development, not only for Nigeria, for African economy. Mr. Fat, Jigawa State government is ready to partner with the CVL because we have seen so many things the CVL is doing and is in line with the aspiration of the administration of Alhaji Muhammad Badr Abubakar, the executive governor of Jigawa State. So Jigawa State government is ready to partner with the CVL in our effort to pull our people out of poverty and also to create a sustainable economy in Jigawa State. Our agricultural policy are aimed at reducing the level of poverty in Jigawa State, and that is why we have taken agriculture as the mainstay of our economy. And through agriculture, we are developing the entire value chain of agriculture. And that has really helped us to empower our youth and also to create a sustainable economy for the state. In our drive toward that, I want to assure you that Jigawa State government will really collaborate with the CVL because we have seen a partner in progress in our effort to help our people. Finally, on behalf of the people and the government of Jigawa State, we wish you a happy birthday and wish you more health, more strength for you to continue to serve this country. Thank you very much.
I now invite the Deputy Governor of Edo State, Honorable Philip Shraibu. Please put your hands together for Edo State in Lagos.
Your Excellencies and the host, I want to please observe the protocol already established. On behalf of my governor and the good people of Edo State, I want to first wish my Egbon Diopa, Chief Professor Pat Toumi, a happy birthday. And we pray to God to continue to bless you and continue to make you available for us to tap from that deposit of knowledge He has continued to abide in you. So we wish you a happy birthday. And Madam, we thank you for managing our brother very well. You know, our wives are good managers. They manage us very well. On behalf of Mr. Governor, I want to join to appreciate the guest speaker. Very insightful paper you just delivered. And for us in Edo State, we always see opportunities when we come to programs like this. And I've seen a lot of opportunities I'm taking home. We need you in our industrial park. I am truly appreciative for the opportunity of such a platform to address a preeminent gathering of brilliant minds from all over the world gathered here today. who continue to shape the course of human dignity through exchange of rare ideas. The theme Intra-Africa Trade Growth and Economic Development is indeed well thought out. I dare say it's quite challenging. A gathering of brilliant minds to discuss intra-African trade at a time of global and fast-changing world it has come at the best time of our nation building. This is a time and age of information revolution, technology revolution, probably the most profound yet of human experience after the Industrial Revolution and World War II. It's also a time that we will see the emergence of a landmark trade agreement, that African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, AFC, the African script. So I must commend the Center for Value in Leadership for its relentless efforts to offering us a platform to freely exchange ideas on how to position our continent for better opportunities. As we enter a new decade, intra-African trade must be taken seriously in order to unlock our untapped economic potentials. The adoption of the AFCFTA, for instance, has created the largest trading bloc in the world with over 1 billion consumers and a GDP of over $3 trillion. Such revolution exposed the gold mine we have neglected for so long. Nigerian trade value with the EU was about $34.4 billion in 2018. Meanwhile, in the same year, our total trade volume with the rest of Africa was mere $7 billion. The share of intra-African export as a percentage of total African export is around 17%. Meanwhile, Europe share in Africa is about 69%, while Asia share is about 56%. For us to enjoy the benefit of our expanded market, we must first work towards reducing and eliminating the barrier that hinder inter-African trade, such as a cross-border conflict, piracy, tariff, and transport infrastructure deficit. I make bold to state that as a sub-national, Edo State has already begun preparation to tap into the benefit of expanding trade opportunities. We are undergoing an industrial rebirth and are making the investment in infrastructure and a sound economic policy, which will secure a path for us as an industrial hub. We are taking advantage of our geographical location. When you check the map of Nigeria, just use your compass and check where Edo is in the map of Nigeria. You will see that when you invest in Edo State, not only that you make your profit, but your product will be available around the country, because you cannot go to east or come to Lagos, southwest, or go to north without passing through Edo State. So Edo State is a virgin place to visit. And we are also helping Lagos to decongest its traffic by helping our river port. When completed, at least you will have small breath of air in terms of traffic. Your Excellency, I'm sure you will partner with us to help to do that, while the economy return to Edo State. Last year, we secured a $250 million investment from an anchor textile tenant at our Benin Industrial Park. And many more are to come in the following months. When the park is fully set up, it will be home for manufacturing, agro-allied, textile and automobile industry with access to uninterrupted power supply. The Osiomo power plant is about 95% completed, and about 65% of that plant will be deposited at that industrial park. Anything is possible if we put our mind to it, and this is especially so for African leaders who have been tasked with the duty to ignite the continent through improved trade. I therefore urge all of us to take advantage of the benefit of this symposium, and it's my hope that out of this alliance we will forge ahead. May Africa become the number one as against number 3 position that it holds presently. And may Nigeria be the catalyst that will pilot and transform this dream into reality. I wish you all. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Governor Jigawa and Deputy Governor of Edo State. All of the attention has been on this side of the hall, hasn't it? But you know, in Lagos we do things differently. So I'm going to direct your attention to that side as I welcome the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. You want to come here? He's abandoning his podium. You see, Oga? Oga? No. Deputy Governor, I should tell you what happened, sir. I should report myself to you, sir. I took your microphone without their permission, and they said that was breach of protocol, and I profusely apologize. Now you are refusing to go there. You must go. Thank you, sir.
The founder, Center for Values in Leadership, Professor Pat Utomi, and his very amiable wife, Professor Mrs. Ifeoma Utomi, Excellencies, the Deputy Governors of Jigawa State and Edo State, thank you for again coming to Lagos. Board members of the Center for Value in Leadership, the Chairman of Education, our father, the former CBN Governor, Chief Joseph Sanusi, the Consul General, the Embassy of South Africa in Nigeria, our keynote speaker, whose only offense is that University of Ife. Just a joke. Thank you for a very deep and irradiating lecture. Esteemed discussants, Captain of Industries, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me join our prof and his wife to welcome everybody to Lagos for this 17th edition of the annual lecture that the center has continuously organized. I must commend the founder for this passionate commitment to the promotion of desired quality that every leader or those who aspire to lead us in this country must possess. We've always said it, everybody from school, teachers, everybody, over and over again, that the key challenge of development in developing economics is the lack of purposeful discipline and competent leadership. So we therefore hope that with consistent advocacy by this center and others organizations with similar focus, that there will be a shift in our orientation and mindset. The theme of this symposium, Intra-African Trade, Growth and Economic Development, which Dr. Oroma has done absolute justice to, cannot be more relevant and timely. And given the assemblage of experts and various scholars that are in this room, I'm sure that at the end of the day, we'll be richer in knowledge and understanding of the critical issues that we must address to improve our current level of trade relations among African countries. Let me, however, seek your indulgence to make some few remarks on the subject. For over many decades, a key factor that we always cited to explain the low level of inter-African trade is because we all produce the same products. That's the common narrative, that most of these products are unprocessed agricultural products and that are exported to various industrialized nations for processing into finished product. And our father mentioned that in his address when he said he was in Singapore and he was at a shop where people were actually selling chocolate. And we all know that Singapore doesn't grow cocoa. So the same thing in Switzerland. They are the largest exporter of chocolate, but they don't grow cocoa. 22 states in Nigeria have the land to grow cocoa, 22 states out of the 36 states. So the issue is what then needs to happen. There's also the issue of strong ties with former colonial masters in Africa that is dividing us. This narrative, one hopefully thinks, is changing because of some level of industrialization that is being achieved by some African countries and realization by African leaders that the continent and individual countries stands to gain a lot in terms of enhanced economic growth and development if greater attention is focused on improving the current level of intra-African trade. I believe that African Continental Trade Agreement that Doctor has mentioned was a product of this realization. It was a bold step, and if well implemented, has a potential to increase inter-African trade by about 52% in 2020. It must, however, be emphasized that trade relations between nations thrive on the commitment of parties to the principle of fairness, integrity, and equity. If these principles are breached, with its attendant negative effects on the economy of one party, then the sustenance of the trade relations and the mutual benefit that should accrue from such will be threatened. So a case in point is a decision by the federal government, we've listened to this morning, to close its borders since November last year. This action, of course, may be viewed to run against the objective of promoting intra-African trade. This decision was, however, considered necessary to protect Nigerian economy against unfair actions which run contrary to accepted norms. So it is the PPPA, that's that agency of government, the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulation Agency, made us to believe that between 2016 and 2019, Nigerians will use 51 million liters of PMS, that's petrol, daily basis. How many cars do we have in the land? So you will realize even from the figure that something is wrong. So when the border was closed, it came down by 9 million on a daily basis. So which means something is happening. So which means various reasons have been given because we are subsidizing PMS, whatever reasons. But so the reality is that has happened. So it is also important that African leaders should not import goods to be sold in Africa. It must be intra in the real sense. So, for example, today, the Republic of Benin seems to be the largest importer of rice in the world with a population of 10 million people. So that is selling to other Nigeria. So the reality, therefore, is if we really want to grow, then it must be produced in Africa and sold within Africa. It cannot be that we are now partnering with other. So for us in Lagos, so what do? We occupy 0.4% of the land mass of this country. So Jigawa State, for example, is about 15 times in terms of land mass of Nigeria. In fact, Niger State is 2.5 times the size of the whole of Southeast. Niger State occupies 7.8% of the land mass of Nigeria. The whole of Southeast is 3% of the land mass. So it tells you, so for us in Lagos, 0.4%, 1/3 of that is water. So 1/3 of that is water. And we now host 10% of the population. So you can imagine. So, but what do? So one of the things that we have decided to do is, okay, let the other parts of the country produce it. We will process. So that's why today we are doing a 32-ton rice per day in a mortar. That will give us 2.8 million bags of rice. Now, the challenge is, where do we get paddies from? Because like I said, our land mass just can't, I mean, even if we demolish all the houses and we start growing rice, it's not enough. So we must get paddy from other parts of the country. So one of the things we are doing, which by the way, during the discussion led to Amotekun, was the need for us to partner with other states. After all, states have various things in Lagos. So we are getting 3,000 hectares of land from Ogun State. Not getting, we are paying for it. We are getting another 2,800 from Osun. And then we are signing an agreement with Niger and Kebbi State so that we can get the paddy rice. Because if you go to Imota now, we have 16 silos. Each one is 7 floors tall that can store up to 6 months paddy so that we can keep processing during the year. So Jigawa, we can get paddies from you too. So, because I see the MC looking at me, I know I don't have all the time. But the reality then for us as Africans is the realization that we are a huge population. And somebody mentioned that, I think it was Doctor in his speech, about the population. And I always like to look at it this way. In 1960, when we had our independence, the truth is British population was more than Nigeria's population. They were 52 million in 1960. We were 48. Today, they are 56. We are what? We are, I don't know, 190, whatever it is. However, our land mass is also now reducing. So the truth is we've lost Bakassi. So even though we have all these 774 local government in the constitution, it's an abnormality because that Bakassi local government is gone. Right? So our land is reducing because of erosion in the southeast and southwest, because of sand dunes in the north. So the agreeable land is actually reducing, but the population is escalating. So something has to be done. Something has to be done. So one of the things that Lagos is also trying to do is to change part of the culture of a man that believes I can have a wife, have children, and just live. There are 1.1 million women in Lagos today that the husband is just somewhere and they don't know where they are with children. That cannot be a society that we all like. So very soon there will be a law. So you cannot just produce them and don't care. So in Lagos, you must produce and care. So that's the law. Thank you very much. And before I go, let me wish Prof a very happy birthday. Madam, thank you very much for taking care of Prof. May God continue to bless you, bless your household, and guide all your thoughts and your actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Lagos is very special and we always do our things very specially. The podium does not make him deputy governor. He's deputy governor regardless of the podium. Please put your hands together for him once again. We don't know where the husbands of some women are, right? But we know somebody who has 4 wives and produced 27 children and they are still counting. I didn't say anything, did I? Don't you know anybody like that? That has 4 wives and they produced 27 children for him and they are still counting. Excuse me, sir, don't make any law in Lagos State that will stop us from marrying more than 1 wife. In fact, the minimum number of children we must produce is 27. Exactly. And still counting. In fact, that's the part that got every one of us, right? Ladies and gentlemen, it would be very inappropriate for us to allow this gentleman to leave us without capturing the moment. So I'd like to invite all 3 of them, the Deputy Governor of Edo State, the Deputy Governor of Jigawa State, and the Deputy Governor of Lagos State. So please join me on stage. and the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Please join them as well. The birthday boy and his wife for a group photograph. Please put your hands together for all of them as they come up stage. And our keynote speaker. No, that's not part of it. Then here, but they're not using the cake. Sorry, gentlemen, you're just going there. It's not the cake. No, it's not the cake. It's just okay, over. You must take a yes, so. Congratulations, Professor Otomi. Thank you very much to all three deputy governors. Thank you to our keynote speaker. Thank you to Mr. Chairman. And quickly we'll move right into the panel session. Thank you very much. Can I now have, for a short musical interlude, Professor Otomi has to walk his guests to their vehicles. And we have TK for a short musical interlude while the deputy governors take their leave. TK, if you're in the hall or Blessing, we need one of you to come and serenade us with your voices. I hold the audience together. The first panel is made up of Mr. Darke Africa, Mrs. Uju Ifejika,
almost all employable citizens.
Dr. Akin Ogunbiyi,
Gas, petroleum, tin,
Mr. UKAK,
limestone, Rayvolution, and many other natural resources. Yet, our citizens struggle with unemployment.
Youth unemployment, in my opinion, is a cancer that has eaten deep into our society. I believe is that to solve this problem, that we need to go towards entrepreneurship.
Youth unemployment in Nigeria is a big problem. In fact, it can be described as a time bomb, which the federal government and our development partners need to urgently address.
No society that leaves a significant number of its people behind can prosper in a sustainable manner. What the challenge of development really is a challenge of opportunities being open to all.
The problem of youth unemployment in
Akin
Nigeria
Ogunbiyi,
is
please.
very
Dr.
alarming.
Akin Ogunbiyi.
According to the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics report for the first quarter of
Dr. Akin
2016,
Ogunbiyi,
unemployment and underemployment
Chief
was
Goody
highest
Ibru,
for persons in the labor
Vice
force
President of
between
the
ages
Africa
of
Business
15 to
Roundtable.
34 years,
Chief
which
Goody
represents
Ibru.
the youth population.
CVL is involved in a program of empowering 100 young people in the Ajegunle area to be entrepreneurs, to be people who create value, create wealth for their own good and for the benefit of general economy. For very clear and specific reasons. No society that leaves a significant number of its people behind can prosper in a sustainable manner. What the challenge of development really is a challenge of opportunities being open to all. And there can be demographic challenges to having opportunity open to all. And so certain parts of town that are quote unquote down the socio-economic ladder tend to get left behind. And because of this, we have been focused on Ajegunle for a very long time. Many years ago, I, as an individual working with another initiative, the Paradigm Initiative Nigeria, was involved in an Ajegunle project that took young people, provided them IT skills, and many escaped the neighborhood through that program. I know the British High Commission is particularly proud of one or two who, through placements in the British High Commission, continue to work even for the British High Commission until date, not just in Lagos but in Abuja. And so this passion to work with the people of that area has remained. We have had CVL initiatives with DFID, which we provided water, boreholes, and running water for parts of the community. And so when the need to help build a whole new generation of entrepreneurs for our country so that we can prosper came up,
thank you.
Ajegunle was a natural. And finding partners like Citibank Foundation and all of that was just greater impetus
if we could
for going in to create more
kindly shut that man up.
for more.
He's talking too much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the challenge of trade, development, growth in Africa is one that we have to approach from perspectives of both policy and practice. And that is why we are privileged to have a panel that includes policy people and people in the arena of praxis. And I'm just going to stay very quick and simple in asking them to bring their experience or experiences as people who deal with these issues on a daily basis to just quickly reflect on the challenges, benefits of intra-African trade, appropriately, very well elucidated in Professor Orama's presentation. But I want us to be provocative in the manner of speaking, piggybacking on the points that he made. You know, years ago, we all read the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Now, 60 years going forward, can we continue blaming Europe for underdeveloping Africa? What is our experience from practice or why growth and development is stunted and why intra-African trade that should grow has not been growing? I'll start from Mrs. Ifejika. Oil is one territory that is going across boundaries these days. And what are the challenges in your experience? I know you've done business in several African countries. What are the challenges to intra-African trade from what he has said and what your experience tells you? Please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll stand on the existing protocols. I think the greatest problem that we're going to encounter, which we have continued to encounter, and it will not cease until we take an action. Dr. Rama's presentation highlighted a lot of good objectives that will help to actualize the vision of us being self-sufficient in terms of our trade relations with other African countries. But the first thing that we need to get right is to have a proper blueprint. And that blueprint will be such that every country will be a signatory to it. And whether there change of government, whether it's military or anything, it will not change. Except we have that. And everybody, agrees to that. No matter what we're going to do, it will not work. Because if a military person comes in and takes over in any country, he changes the dynamics. So that is one. The second thing that we have to look at is to make sure that the countries that have signed to this intra-African agreement must have particular product or services that they have to specialize in. That way you don't have duplicity of products, in which case they are now looking at which one will be better. And you avoid diversion of people within the same group deciding because they have excess product, they will now sell it through other routes that is not within the approved terms. The other issue you have to look at, just like you talk about the currency has to be such that it has to be uniform. If you don't, even if you have the portal, what of somebody breaking into that, hacking into the system and changing everything there? So there are lots of things that we need to look at. And another thing is, countries must have that, remove hatred, from member countries. Because what you have today is that because Nigerians are very bold and they are virtually in every aspect of, the business life. In top, because they are well-read, they are bold, they take risk. They are everywhere, you will call it Asia, call it Europe, call it everywhere. So what you see is that the other African countries that are not that exposed believe that once a Nigerian, they start dealing with Nigerians, they come and take over. So those things have to be clearly spelled out. What will be the relationship, the sort of relationships that we will have. So for me, as a business person, I've done businesses with some other African countries, and I know there are some of them that will tell you they cannot come to Nigeria because of unsafe situation. Those we'll have to deal with. Some will tell you, they will rather not give you a confirmed LC. They'll give you unconfirmed LC. So a lot of all these things because of trust, lack of trust. So for me, those are the critical things that we need to look at. Because if you look at today, the export percentage of Africa as a whole is about 16.8. You have Europe 68.2. You have US 55. And then you have Asia 58. So what happened to Africa that you're talking of inter-African trade? You only have 16%, 16.2. So we need to, if we need to do that, because some of these European countries, they specialize in certain things. If you're looking for this, they'll tell you, go to Switzerland, go to Germany, go to this place. We need to cultivate that for that to work. So,
thank you so very much. And you've raised a number of issues, and we want to escalate those issues, and when we come through the next round for you to, one of the issues you have raised is the question of uncertainty created by not having a kind of minimum elite consensus. When there is, not only when military comes, even when one governor comes, another president comes, things change. How do we create leaders who understand the consequence of this? Problems of regulatory risk and so on. Now, Aki, you took insurance beyond Nigeria's borders to a number of countries. What are the typical challenges you have faced in doing that, and how can we ensure that policy is more welcoming of intra-African trade?
Okay, thank you. Let me join everybody present to wish Pat a wonderful celebration today. The topic we are looking at has actually been aptly dealt with by the guest speaker, and I say it's actually the right person at this time to lead the discourse. But I'm a bit, I don't want to say I'm confused in what he has presented. I painted a lot of potentials and opportunities for Pan-African trade, and he talked so much about the awaited miracle. At the same time, he gave us super humongous challenges that the continent is facing and we need to overcome. I read something that said that, which he mentioned, Africa is the next miracle everybody is waiting for. What is a miracle? You can Google it. A miracle, he says, is an extraordinary and welcome event that is inexplicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore attributed to a defined agency. So where is that defined agency coming from? The critical problem I think we have in Africa is clearly the wrong set of people who are actually in leadership position. No, you are talking of policy framework, you are talking of agencies of change, you are talking of AFREXIM, African Development Bank. They still need to deal with the respective governments within the continent of Africa. What exactly can we do? It is up to some of us to rise up, and yes, we are educated, to join forces in actually ensuring that we have the right leadership who actually can drive all these policies and create an enabling environment for the objective of Pan-African trade to be realized. The bedrock of what his presentation relied on was industrial revolution. We are at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution now. But what do you do to the psyche of Africans? What do you do to the quality of product Africans produce? What do you do for the craze for foreign goods? We hear in Nigeria up to toothpick is being imported. Yet, he has provided some solutions mentioning private investment coming in. But if private investors will come in to do anything in Africa, where are the enabling policies and environment? You mentioned our experience. One clear thing that he alluded to in his presentation was the role of the creative industry. Look at what Nollywood has been able to achieve. I think while we are talking of industrial revolution, we are talking of looking at goods, production of goods and services, we should actually tailor our immediate focus on what can give us immediate gain, which is in the area of services. Nollywood today has almost integrated Africa. We can see what they have achieved. In fact, by the time Africa was, Nigeria was, is it debate, what to call it? You see, Nollywood is contributing, is about a third contributor to our GDP. Another area is telecoms. See what the various carriers and network have been able to achieve. So I think services present a clear, low-hanging fruit to be able to drive development within Africa. What I do as a profession is insurance. Insurance can play a key role in driving growth and development for Africa. But where is the market in Africa? What was our experience? Mutual Benefit went to Liberia. We operated in Cameroon. We are currently in Niger. If you ask me, it took us 8 to 10 years to actually have a breakthrough in Liberia. Why? Because of so many factors. One is actually the fear of the local people that these foreign people have come to take over our industry. We work within Africa. We're all African countries. We had to be looking for skills that are not available within the Liberia market to operate, just to have a face. And you are talking of Pan-African business and trade, where you have that direct apathy to a Nigerian company coming over to go and operate there. Again, policy regulation. How do we create a synergy? I remember some 4 years ago, I was the president of Accessing Bank in Cairo, and through a challenge, he said, look, Akin, you are an insurance man, that my operation generates about 50 million US dollars in premium. What can you do within Africa to retain this premium? We're still in finding solution the last 5 years. We haven't been able to find. 75% of industrial risk premium is exported to Europe and Americas in the name of reinsurance. Why can't we have a Pan-African insurance market that will be flexible and dynamic enough to be able to retain some of this income, some of this fund that we are looking for?
Banking has tended to move a little more quickly than insurance, which is why we're going to UK right now. You have experience across the continent. How can we be more competitive on the continent? These challenges of, people being afraid of somebody from that country, they're dealing with Europeans, they're not from their country. So if they are not afraid of Europeans, why should they be afraid of South Africans? We have had good examples. South African companies have done remarkably well here, but they have also had problems, and that's sort of the issue we need to deal with. How can we help reduce some of those challenges?
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, and good afternoon. Let me align with some of the postulations Professor Arama made today. And I want to say that because there's been a lot of engagement over the last 40 years to try and build regional blocks. Not just ECOWAS, but we also have the ECA, we have the COMESA, we have SADC. So these are practical attempts by countries to form regional blocks. Unfortunately, not much has happened, and we've seen the dominance of foreign brands in our markets. One of the critical issues we need to confront is, one, how do you mobilize capital? Two, how do you deploy capital? And three, how do you reward capital? For me, those are central in answering the question you've posed, because some of those companies that come in and dominate are able to attract funds that are patient, that can stay, and therefore they have sufficient time to harvest the resources or the proceeds from their investments. The challenge we have in Nigeria and I dare say Africa is the fact that we don't have patient capital, and therefore reliance has been on banks that have to lend short term. Unfortunately, these come at very high costs. Now, how do we tackle that issue? One, I think if you talk about regional blocks, you are looking at multiple states or nations that have pooled resources together to be able to have higher bargaining power. If you relate that to the company, You're looking at individual businesses that are going to negotiate transactions and they don't have the bargaining power, and so they're weak. This is why the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is good. Because really and truly, the gross national product of any economy depends or influences your ability to bargain with your trade partners. By the same token, if you have companies that group together and they're able to have shared services, it becomes a lot easier for them to produce at low cost and compete with those foreign companies. Why do we say so? And Professor Orama mentioned it. If you create, for instance, export processing zones, and then you have businesses incubated there, producing out of those locations, you minimize the cost of production, and therefore the cost overall is lower. If you have the federal government or the state government, as the case may be, providing water, security, road infrastructure, businesses do not now need to make those commitments, and therefore the cost of production is lower and they're more competitive. Now, but let me also be a little bit controversial here, Prof. We have total pension assets, 10 trillion naira. The question is, if these funds are patient, if they have life of, say, 30, 40 years, does it make sense putting those funds in treasury bills, in bonds? 70% of those pension assets are lent to the federal government. I talked about how do you mobilize capital? How do you deploy capital? How do you reward capital? So we need to begin to challenge some of those thoughts and then get our funds to work for us. If you have the pension assets invested in infrastructure, for instance, under a well-negotiated protocol or arrangement, and those funds are available to be utilized for infrastructure, they will begin to bring down cost of production and will become more competitive.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, UK. You've raised so many very, very important issues, and I hope that somehow we can pull all of these together. On the question of patient capital that you have, concluded with, major issue that we have to deal with. It can't be done by just being creative. The pension fund is a classic example. Government crowding out the private sector that can invest more productively, if you will. But let's bear in mind that when Nigeria decided to open its telecom space, because of perception of risk in Europe and North America, everybody was looking Nigeria. How many people will buy cell phones in Nigeria? And Africans came in. They came in as Econet. They came in as MTN. And a huge market opened up. And Europe started scrambling to get in. Why are we not building on that kind of experience to get capital that is more familiar, as it were, move across borders and help grow markets before we start looking at Europe and elsewhere? And this is where we can get excellence. What is your experience with the challenge? South African companies playing in Nigeria, what are the issues? How can we make intra-African trade more facilitative of growth and development?
Thank you very much, Prof. And let me join everyone to wish you a happy birthday. And of course, express my gratitude to Professor Orama for the excellent presentation, and also to my fellow panelists. Maybe I'm at both an advantage at one level and a disadvantage at another. But I will just try and say a few things before I respond to what the Prof is saying. I think I need to, just put a reminder before all of us that this year South Africa will be taking the chairship of the AU and the African peer review mechanism. And what is very interesting and what also aligned very clearly with what the Prof said and the topic here is that the theme will be silencing the guns and creating conducive conditions for economic development. There's a synergy between what we are discussing here and what the focus of the continent and the leaders of the continent is going to be for the entire year. But there are some underlying issues that we need to really focus on, quite frankly, which are central and could be very critical to hamper the economic growth and development of the continent. And the quick questions that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we alter the development trajectory of the continent? How do we ensure that we address the conflict between continental interest and national interest so that we can then move the trajectory of the development of of Africa to a different level? The focus that the chairship of South Africa is going to be will center around the following issues. Peace and security in the continent. The professor spoke about the need for security. There is no way in which development can happen in Africa when there is still so many areas of conflict in the continent. We must address that. The other issue is the issue of the unity of Africa. The focus will be on the unity of Africa. And the Prof also made mention of the empowerment of the youth. The focus of the chairship of South Africa is going to be the empowerment of women and the empowerment of the youth. Because women constitute the largest number of people in the continent. That is the capital that we must utilize to drive and give momentum to the development of the continent. Therefore, we have a whole range of possibilities before us. But there are lessons from which we must, there are episodes from which we must draw lessons. Recall how we came together as Africans, various ways. We developed the Lagos Plan of Action. The idea was that we have had so many plans that we have developed. We, of course, can move maybe to NEPAD, and now we are at the free trade area. What has been hampering the development or the implementation of these plans? What are the things, the underlying things that we must do to ensure that we create conditions for the implementation of all our programs so that we can spur the growth of Africa and its economic development? I think there are some underlying things. We must address, quite frankly, the social, economic, and political issues that are hampering either national unity and may have an effect negatively on continental unity. And when NEPAD was conceived, the idea was to begin to create a common and repurpose the focus of the leadership of Africa on what needs to be done. Have we lost the momentum at that time? Will we regain that momentum to ensure that the Africa free trade, continental free trade area is implemented? And I think all the speakers here have highlighted some of the key issues. This year, this decade, must really be the golden decade for the continent. We must not lose the decade, and we must address some of the things. The experience, Prof, that we can do it for ourselves. We have telecoms. We are proving that if Africans can develop and repurpose their focus, they can make it. The telecom industry. But we must also look at the integrative infrastructure. We will not be able to trade properly if we don't have an and I'm using this term, integrative infrastructure that can make it possible that we can move within the continent easily. And we have the potential. We have the money. There are a lot of pension assets in the continent which can be utilized to ensure that we invest. South Africa is looking at that. Nigeria is looking at that. And if these two countries can take the lead, the development of Africa and the golden decade for Africa will not be lost.
Well, thank you very, very much. I'll go very quickly. We have here the Vice President of the Africa Business Roundtable. Back in 1987 or 87, thereabouts, I hand-carried letters from the President of the Africa Development Bank, Babacar Ndiaye, to some of the first members of the Africa Business Roundtable that came from Nigeria. Part of the expectation was that African businessmen interacting with one another will reduce these barriers of not knowing who is across, which is a major hindrance to intra-African trade. What has prevented us from making as much progress such that I can pick up my phone and, hey, I know this fellow in Angola, and he knows me enough to trust me to transact, and we can therefore build synergies that comes from trading and producing together across boundaries.
First of all, let me congratulate you again, joining others on your birthday, and to bring you greetings from your good friend, Samuel Dosu Awure, who is the current president of the African Business Roundtable. He was flying from Geneva, but he had an emergency to attend to and has asked me to stand in for him. And we're here in full force, the African Business Roundtable, to support this symposium. And I have with me two of our members, Erelu Rusumu, who is here, and also Chief Fayomi, who is also here. As you rightly said, the African Roundtable was a creation of Babacar Ndiaye. When he was president of the African Development Bank, he realized that Africans were not trading among themselves. He also realized that the Africans were not taking advantage of the facilities given by the African Development Bank. So the idea was to form an umbrella body comprising leaders of business in Africa to get together, to get to understand that the African Development Bank is there for them to use, and secondly, that they must trade among themselves. So the message that is being given today by Professor Rama, wherever Babacar Ndiaye is today, he will be very, very happy, because that was the message he wanted to pass on to African entrepreneurs, that you have to trade among yourselves. It was very sad some time ago, I think maybe 20 years or so ago, Africans were not trading among themselves at all. The figure was as dismal as about 2, 3, 4, 5% in the single digits. The position has improved, but I think with the African Continental Trade Area Agreement, this will now change. I believe that the time for Africa to move forward has come. And I like to share the optimism of Professor Rama. That is the time for Africa. In any event, Africa is considered to be the next frontier for investment in the world. I would also like to make some mention about what the Consul General of South Africa mentioned, and that is about NEPAD, the New Partnership for Africa's Development. In about the year 2000 or so, African heads of state got together and said, look, we are the least developed continent in Africa. Why is that so? We have vibrant population, we have resources. What is the problem? And a committee of the heads of state, about 5 of them, got together. That was during the presidency of President Obasanjo. And I think all the members of the committee included Bouteflika of Algeria, Wade of Senegal, Thabo Mbeki of South Africa, and Mubarak of Egypt. I guess they locked the sense of, and they came up with a blueprint, and that is based on the theme of partnership. That Africa has no reason why they should be accepting grants and aids from the developed world. Because we have something in Africa that the rest of the world does not have. A lot of resources. And we have huge manpower. So what we should do is to partner with the rest of the world and say, look, put on the table what you have got. I will put on the table what we have got. We have mineral resources, we have land, agriculture, we have people. Partner with us, come with the technology and with the capital. And whatever comes out of it, the dividend of it will be shared on an equitable basis, on the basis of what Professor Rama mentioned, on an equitable and respect.
At 3.21, about 4.1 projection, but it could be a lot higher. I think it can be of the states create free markets. So the first thing is efficient, allow private capital value chain sectors, you are able to carry population, because growth without equality or growth with inequality will build so that there is full benefits that will arise from the growth that's projected.
Well, quite a number of challenges that we are facing for Pan-African trade have been highlighted. Some of them include government policies and procedures. We have regulatory obstacles. We talked about cultural differences and the likes. I would think that the various development agencies, AFREXIM and the likes, and the new institution just being created, should look at creating a synergy on regional basis. Let's create a regional block. At least there's some semblance within the blocks. For example, you have the ECOWAS, you have you have the ECOWAS, you have the Francophone countries, you have Southern Africa and the likes, who have similarities in almost some of these structural issues that actually can drive. I think this will focus more, instead of looking at Africa globally, let's actually look at driving these structural changes within these various groups and blocks that we have. ECOWAS doing these things, if we get it right, we can collaborate, the Central Africa, the Southern Africa, and of course, when you look at what is happening in the East African, in the North African countries, they're actually closer to Europe. So I think we should focus on block integration and synergy. That will go a long way in helping us. And development agencies should please focus on that. Thank you.
Okay, I think one of the major problems that we have to address for this process to be successful is to have the basic infrastructure of movement for this free trade. We don't have railways connecting, African countries. I don't think there's any country that you have the Francophones, they do old one that they did in 60s. Yes. No, we are talking of digital. Yeah, we are talking of go to China. You can't be referring to China. First time I went to China was in 1999. By then they've had, yes, fast train. So that is what we will have first. And with the president here, AFREXIM, they've put together some funds that the African heads of states can key into. But it is not just doing the usual African thing. They will use it for what it is meant for. Okay? And then you now have to start building crops of leaders that are digital. The world is going digital. You cannot be analog and then continue to want to fit into the world fast-moving train. No, you have to have people who will drive that digital process. And these are young people. You have in Paris, you have in France, you have every other places, you have people in the 40s and 50s. We need to start grooming them. They are not yet ready for that, but we have to groom them for this process. Then the other one that we need to really address is the issue of countries within Africa, understanding that Africans, we are one. I am an investor. I don't want to go and invest in a country where my staff will go to work and I won't sleep because I'm not, their safety are not guaranteed. Those things has to be spelled out in the protocol of what is expected. And if there's a breach, what are the consequences? Because we don't have consequences of, when people are killed for going to do business somewhere, nobody says anything. If it's a criminal, take the criminal to court. There's the processes. So those are the things that must form the basis, because I am a key investor in Africa, but there are places that I will not put my money into. If there's this free trade coming in, inter-African free trade is coming in, we are ready to get involved in it, but we need to make sure that there is safety, there is infrastructural that will drive that. We want to see the protocol, the processes, that is framework, how that one will work. And then we want to see, the countries must come together to have a common front, like you have Afrexim. They should form a bank. You go to Europe, you get a loan for 2%. You come to Africa, you have loan for 15%. You go to other African countries, this thing is that. So we have to have those things in place that drives that. That's the only, because there's money in Africa. But the only thing is that it's in wrong places. So we need to start looking at it.
Well, thank you very much. Mrs. Fejika is suggesting that we should start bringing the money out from under the mattress.
There's money in Africa.
Well, fantastic panel. Thank you so very much. It's about institutions, it's about systems, it's about making capital work for Africa. And information so that people don't distrust each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we all please stand for a group photograph? Professor Orama, please, we need you up again. Professor Benedict Orama. Dr. Gordy Ibru, please stay back for a group photograph. Prof, you'll be in between all of them, and Professor Orama will join you in the middle of all of them. The next panel, a very short session, is Intra-Africa Trade and Youth Inclusion. It's going to be moderated by Kingsley Bangwell. Can we please have Kingsley Bankswell, the founder of Young Stars Foundation and co-founder of NOSC 100 a Day Secondary School. Uluebube Unwosu from the University of Lagos. Zainab Yahaya from Lagos State University. Mba Chidera Stephen from the Bell University of Technology. Kingsley Bankswell, Oluebube Unwosu, Zainab Yahaya, Abdul Salam Meirufat Abiola from Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and Hassan Olayinka Farouk. All please come up now. This is going to be a very short and quick one. Are they here? All right, please quickly. Kingsley Bankswell, who is that? It's you. Please sit here. And every other person. Please pay attention. Over to you. The mic is there. There's another one there. Two of you use this, okay? Two of you use that. 15. Yeah, I think you're going first. I think the first question is 3 people answering. No, that's his mic. Yeah.
All right. All right. Good afternoon. Standing on existing protocol, like introduced, my name is Kingsley Bangwell, and I'm here to moderate the youth session. We have quite an interesting group of young people, undergraduates, who have taken time out to be part of this panel today. We have, right here, we have Chidra. Chidra, yeah, thank you for joining us. We have Marufat, yeah, and then we have Olayinka, and we have Udo, and of course we have Zainab. And the conversation today is youth inclusion in intra-Africa trade. Well, we've listened to quite a lot here today. Let me start by just asking, based on what we've heard, especially from the keynote speech by Professor Benedict, he mentioned a youth fund to support young people's, creative industry engagement, services and all of that. Can we just briefly talk about what other opportunities are there for young people to benefit and participate in the intra-Africa trade? Yeah, Olaika, you want to start with that?
Good afternoon, everyone. Standing on or sitting on existing protocols, I believe that youth belong to the forefront of inter-African trade. Yeah. We comprise 60% of this continent's labor force, yet we are underrepresented in this sector. I believe that youth can take advantage of the current time, take advantage of available data to make research about the patterns and trends of intra-African trade and determine their areas of interest and areas where they have comparative advantage. They can also take advantage of platforms like this, thank you, Professor, other seminars, other forums, and social media to connect with future trade partners from all the corners of this continent.
All right, well, thank you. You talked about you taking comparative advantage, and you talked about use of digital, tools like social media to connect with young people across the continent to exchange trade, goods, and services. Let me come to Marufa. Zainab. All right, Zainab. Yeah. So what's your view to how young people, undergraduate students, can participate and take advantage of the ongoing intra-African trade conversation and free trade agreement?
Good afternoon. I feel the youth has a place in intra-African trade because we all have different businesses we are engaged with. Yep. And with the AFCTA, which the barrier has been beveiled and rest, we can now trade with other countries, not minding the tariffs that are attached to it. We would now want to go into businesses.
All right, let me just ask, do you want to just quickly speak to this? Opportunities for young people. I know you do a few things. What are the opportunities for young people in this year?
So we have a lot of opportunities for young people, especially in the services sector.
All right.
A lot of young people are already doing branding. They're already doing marketing. They're reaching out to people across borders, across the different universities in Nigeria, in West Africa, and all of these things. So with a much more structured trade agreement with different countries, it means it's easier for them to sell the services and get money for it, because more often than not, they don't get reward for these things because it's not really monetized. Now with such a comprehensive agreement, young people can now go beyond borders, even in their service rendering, without leaving the comfort of their homes. And for those who are into mini manufacturing, it's not easy for them to export because there are now lower tariffs, and for some products, no tariffs at all. And with such interconnectedness, it becomes easier to move a good from Lagos to Accra, from Accra to Lomé, all across Africa. And so it's going to help, definitely.
Yeah, so basically young people have a lot of opportunity they can leverage and take advantage of in terms of the emerging intra-African trade. So let's briefly talk about barriers for young entrepreneurs, young people that may be interested in trade across borders. What comes to mind? You want to start a conversation around that, and then we can pass on to Maruf.
Yes. So for barriers, I think the barriers are very real. Yeah. I think the barriers stare us in the face let's look at the creative industry, for instance. Now, it's easy to get your songs streamed. You maybe get 100,000 streams, 10,000 streams. But when it's time to, get money in return for that, it becomes difficult, especially here in Africa. So
Why?
it's easier.
Why is that?
The very first issue is a lack of corresponding data in Africa, and then currency exchange issues. So like was mentioned earlier today, it's easier for someone in Europe to actually, pay for my song, or maybe Apple Music or another platform like that from Europe than someone in Africa, maybe in Zambia or Zimbabwe. It would just be 6 countries close to each other, and we're using completely different currencies, different, trade agreements and all of those things. So it's pretty much challenging to even earn from my fellow Africans. And another one is the lack of entrepreneurship culture, or sustaining trade culture in Africa.
Yeah.
So the culture here is just regular 9 to 5 for young persons, whereas a lot of societies abroad or in non-African countries, you already encourage young people to innovate, to look at how they can partner someone from Prague, someone from Hungary, for them to do something together. But here it's just, okay, you just go to school, then afterwards use your CV and get a good job. So the culture also needs to change for us to leverage one another in Africa.
So basically, it's, yeah. So basically, you're trying to say there is a lower expectation on young people in Africa in terms of engaging this kind of conversation, the kind of opportunities that we're talking about here. So let me ask Marufat, in terms of barriers, as a female entrepreneur, as a young female, what are the barriers you think you confront in terms of participating in trade, be it at the local level or the intra-African dimension?
All right, so I think that women are already into the trade sector. However, they are in the grassroots of the trade in Africa, especially women that are into business, informal businesses. So I think what needs to be done, and most of the time, these women, they are very vulnerable to abuses from customs, and most times some of them get harassment from the custom officers. So I think that the solution to this is that women need to, more facilities need to be created for women in this sector in order for them to be able to participate in this intra-African trade. For instance, I think one of the major problems is a financial problem. Now, women are in this situation in Africa that they are inferior, and most times they don't have a collateral to get loans from banks or other organizations. So I think that if some banks or institutions and the stakeholders, if they're able to look at the women and provide more avenue for them to be able to play in a stronger way in this intra-African trade sector. Banks such as the African Export-Import Bank can help women to rise up and benefit from this intra-African trade. Thank you.
I hope the chairman is around to hear that feedback. They're advocating for a special fund, special facility for women to participate more and access finance, because finance is a big deal for women to participate in African trade. Yes, you wanted to speak to that too?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Another barrier to inter-African trade which the youth face is
Sorry, you need to speak louder and put the mic. Yeah, no, mic is. You speak louder. Yeah.
All right. So another barrier which the youth face concerning intra-African trade, you have the one of technology, right?
Okay.
So most of the youths are not technologically inclined, right? So they need to create a sort of awareness for them in order to venture into this aspect, because technology is the way forward in this dynamic world.
Yeah.
The world is global, technology is advancing. So inter-African trade the youth can actually get better, or can actually be more involved in inter-African trade through technology. And I feel that has not been done, or it's not that has not been done. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
All right. So in wrapping, let me just quickly ask: going forward, What can we do based in terms of institutionalization, in terms of awareness creation, in terms of mindset reorientation? What can be done to get more young people interested, involved, and actively participating in this conversation around the intra-African trade and taking advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that has just been recently signed? What do we have for, be it governments, be it institutions of learning? You are all from universities. What can universities do? What can the private sector do? What can civil society groups do to provide more capacity, information, and knowledge for young people to participate in this? So let me, okay, you want to speak to that? Okay, very briefly. So everyone just speaks to that in a minute, and then
so first of all, judging from my own perspective,
yes,
I'm in a university, so the university can play their own part in creating awareness for intra-African trade by setting up forums or competitions or platforms for those youth, like students like myself, to actually showcase their entrepreneurial skills or knowledge concerning intra-African trade.
All right, perfect, thank you. Yeah.
All right, so I think that about this intra-African trade, a lot of youth, people that are not studying courses that are related to these intra-African trade things, I think some people are not really inclined with this. They don't know much about it. So I think that more awareness should be created within universities, and youth should be, more youth, the stakeholders should try to collaborate with the institution bodies to engage more youth into this. For instance, the agricultural sector is a sector that a lot of youth are not really involved in. And I think that there's a huge market for us there. And I think that if we take advantage of this with the help of the institution as per undergraduates, so I think we can do quite well in that sector, and youth need to be more involved in this thing.
All right, yeah, Onikan, yeah.
In this section, I believe the professor is already ahead by creating a platform like this for youths like us to come up and share.
Yeah, so give it up for Professor Patutomi, for giving the youth platform.
Thank you, Professor. And like the other speakers said, our universities should also create more courses for people that aren't in courses like economics, international trade, people in mass comm, people in political science, so they can be more knowledgeable about things like this. And I also believe that the government should try to regulate the informal sector, because there are lots of talents and potential left untapped in that sector.
Thank you. All right. Okay, just before we do, let her speak and then you wrap. Yes.
Okay. I feel with all my getting from what my other panelists have said, the school should create clubs that has to do with intra-African trade, or probably related courses that has to do with finance, economics, to we that don't have anything that has to do with it. Like me, I'm a law student. I don't have an idea with finance, economics, but with this now, I think I have little or more knowledge about intra-African trade, economics, finance, and I would like to know more. Yes. So I feel the school should work on it, and the government should also assist them.
In fact, let me add, the school associations, the student associations in schools can do something about it. For instance, the law association can actually create, because there's a legal angle to trade, and so there's huge opportunity for law students and different disciplines to actually leverage. So it's not just about those who are doing economics. So closing word from Oduya.
Okay, so I want to focus on the government angle.
Yes.
Encouraging young people.
Yes.
There are some good steps that have been taken, but it can be made even more. Yeah. So first is orientation. There needs to be a cultural reorientation about the fact that young people can also be CEOs, they can also be CEOs, they can come together with each other and build sustainable businesses in Africa. Yeah. Then forums like and foundations like TEF and so on need to be supported as in the drive to encourage intra-African moves for development and all of those things. So with that, I feel we'll be on the right path to even achieving some of the SDGs.
All right, well, so I want to say big thank you one more time to Prof for fostering youth inclusion I'm sure we've had the voice of young people. They've been enlightened, they've been educated, and they've learned their voice. And I'm sure as ambassadors, they go back to their, schools and their constituents to begin to, promote and advocate the conversation around youth inclusion, youth participation, youth engagement in the African trade. And hoping that by 2030, when these kind of conversations are happening, they'll be coming as champions to share practical examples of what they have done practically in leveraging this opportunity. One more time, I want to say a big thank you, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you
very much. All please rise for a group photograph. Birthday boy, Professor Patutomi, please join us. Professor Benedict Orama, please, we need you upstage again. Group photograph. Gifts, you might want to... Mr. Chairman, Chief Joseph Sanusi, please let the champions of tomorrow have the opportunity of a group photograph with a former Governor of the Central Bank, and Professor Ifeoma Otomi also please join them. The law student says she knows nothing about finance, right? I'm going to ask you a very simple question. You said you know nothing about finance. 2 million naira plus 2 million naira.
4 million naira.
You know finance, you see? Oh, you know money. You don't know finance. What is money if it is not finance? All right, thank you. We've had Zainab Yahaya from Lagos State University. She's a 300 level law student. Abdul Salam Abiola of Bafemi Awolowo University. She's also a law student. We have Hassan Olayinka Farouk from Christopher University. We have Mba Stephen from Bells University. He's in 400 level, Department of Business Administration, Human Resource Management. We have Oluebube Nwosu from the University of Lagos. He's currently the lead partner at SBRM Limited. And then the moderator, Kingsley Bankswell, he's the founder of Young Stars Foundation and the co-founder of NOSC 100 Naira a Day Secondary School. Thank you all very much. We're proud of you. In you, we believe in the future of the Nigerian youth. All right, the next panel, which is also going to be very short.
Hello.
Has a theme, Trans-Border Trade and Manufacturing Across Africa, Influencing Policy for an Enabling Environment. Can we all please take our seats? Thank you very much. The third panel is the Path Track panel. So Path Track panelists, please get ready. We'll take a short musical interlude. I'm going to invite a super songstress with a sonorous voice, Blessing, for a performance. And TK, Blessing and TK, please, if you are ready, please come up stage. DJ, sound crew, please cue their song. Please, TK, please.
Seem to know what I'm going through. Feel as though I'm with you forever.
You can look into my arms and see the way I feel my heart. What is thrilling me? Baby, I have known you forever. Amigos para siempre, misiones vivirán. Amigos siempre, misiones vivirán. Friends for life, not just a summer or a spring. Amigos para siempre. I feel you near me even when we are apart. Just knowing you are with this what can warm my heart. Friends for life. life, not just a summer or a spring. Amigos para siempre.
Share memories I won't forget.
Are you sure?
And we share more, my friend. We haven't started yet. Something happens when we are together.
When para siempre. When I look at you, I wonder why there has to come a time when we must say goodbye. I'm alive when we're together. Amigos para siempre means you always be my friend. Amigos para siempre means a love that cannot end. Friends for life, not just a summer or spring. Amigos para siempre. I feel the air even when we are apart. Just knowing you are with this one can warm my heart. Friends for life, not just a summer or spring. Amigos para siempre. Amigos para siempre. Amigos para siempre. Thank you.
Thank you. You would think I can't sing. I just would like to show myself. The next edition of the Intra-Africa Free Trade Singers. I'll be the star performer. Put your hands together for TK and Blessing. The next panel is the Patriarch panel, and we will run through very quickly. I'd like to have the moderator, Mr. Yusuf Obaya. Mr. Yusuf Daya, sorry. Please put your hands together for him. He's the Senior Manager, Trade Policy and Market Access at Afrexim. The discussants on the panel, Ambassador Ayola Olukani, who is the DG of NASEMA. Mr. Samuel Dusu Awore, represented by Mr. Godi Ibro, who is the Vice President of the Africa Business Roundtable. Emanuela Ibiawuchi, who is the founder of Ella Food Bank. Dr. Amani Asfor, who is the president of BPW International. Thelma Ekio, Managing Director, SME Nigeria, and Professor Pat Utomi. Those are the panelists. Can we put our hands together for every one of them?
The lady is Miss Emanuela? Yes. Oh, both of the ladies.
Yeah, their names are here.
Yeah, I've got them.
Okay.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. My name is Yusuf Daya from the African Export-Import Bank, and I'm grateful to Professor Utomi and the leadership of CVL for giving us the opportunity to moderate this panel, which features a number of distinguished speakers on a very important theme of trans-border trade and manufacturing across Africa, influencing policy for an enabling environment. This is particularly important in the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area and the fact that trading under the agreement is set to commence in July of this year. To start the discussions and to provoke our panelists, we know that unquestionably the success of this agreement hinges on the private sector, as these agreements are always secured for the benefit of the private sector actors who are looked upon for its implementation. It is the private sector that are the direct investors of capital, that are the producers, manufacturers, marketers, distributors, and the consumers of goods and services that will be traded under the agreement. To this end, it's critical that the private sector be actively involved in the negotiations, design, and implementation of such agreements, as they are the ones most directly affected by them. However, unfortunately, there is very little private sector participation in trade and investment formulation, and this perhaps explains some of the limited success we've achieved under some of the other agreements that Africa has pursued in terms of trade and investment. Ambassador, I'll start with you. In Nigeria, we witnessed the strength of the private sector, especially through NASIMA, when it came to the AFCFTA, and the important role they played in influencing government with regard to the agreement. What, in your opinion, has ensured the strong private sector voice in Nigeria? And what lessons can we learn for other countries in Africa to ensure that the private sector can lend a similar voice to the policy discourse?
Thank you very much for that question. I sincerely hope the mic is working and I can hear it properly. The first thing I want to say is to thank Professor Orama for reminding everybody that the best thing that happened to Nigeria is the Great Ife in terms of the question of resources. And I also want to thank Professor Patu Tuni too as well. I think the first thing which I want to say is that there's so much misunderstanding about the FCTA. Very few people know what it is all about. Very few people, and that's where we should start from. And that's why NASIMA is engaged now. We are doing a dialogue series. We've started a dialogue series as far as the AFCTA itself is concerned. We've done 3. What is the AFCTA? The state of negotiations, the question of trading goods, and we're also looking at an area like services, especially an area where you're strong, because you have to know where you're strong. There will be losers, there will be gainers. So as far as we're concerned in Nigeria, especially from the perspective of the private sector, this is the first thing we are doing in terms of sensitization and let people know what exactly it's all about. And that's why I want to do a challenge to the young people. The lady said, look, I don't know much about it. We want to do something about it. We will invite some of the universities to join us in the subsequent meetings as far as that exactly is concerned. Before I leave the mic, let me give you a practical example, because I served in the foreign service 35 years before I eventually joined NASIMA. I served 4 years in Nairobi in Kenya, and we were wondering, why can't we have Ketepa tea? So we went to Mombasa to the tea auction. Ironically, the companies that export tea to Nigeria from England is in Mombasa buying tea and then packaging in England and sending to Nigeria. So we now say, look, Kenyan Tea Board, I think we need to do something. So these are some of the things which we need to do. But like I said, the question of issue of sensitization is key, and let people understand. And also ask ourselves, where are we strong? And by the way, Nigerians are already key into the FCTA. The services sector is key. And also law firms are already going into Nigerian law firms, training other countries in the area of mediation and conciliation within the framework of their practical, impactful action. I think, and of course, please, we need to ratify, which is yet to be done.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Mr. Zekio, turning to you. We know that the African private sector is dominated by small and medium enterprises, micro enterprises in many instances, which accounts for over 75% of total employment. How do we ensure that we can use the AFCFTA to bridge this missing middle, to build up these enterprises, and what are the key policy obstacles that need to be addressed, both at the national level, but also those policy issues that need to be taken up at the continental level?
Thank you.